So you've been working with Jim for quite a while now, and you co-wrote this script too. So is it safe to assume that once you started working on it, it was always assumed you were going to play Mister?
Yeah, this one was pretty much a done deal.
And did you, when you were writing it, was that a consideration for you? Were you kind of molding this character into someone you really wanted him to be?
It's weird when you write for yourself. I mean, I write for generally people I know. I prefer to meet the actors almost before we're done. And usually we'll, even like Danielle in this one, I mean, her character, when we met her, I mean, I just within 5 minutes went to Jim and said, this is a rewrite, man. It's just, ain't gonna work. Because she was supposed to be older and Mister's love interest, and it was just, a girl's like my it looks like my grandkid. I said, I'm not doing that. And ironically, I mean, it works that way. So if you can, it's always easy to write for people you know, including yourself. So.
It seems like the writing was probably a really fluid and ever-changing process then.
Yeah,
so
right up to the bitter end, we were still rewriting.
Is there a point for you where you have to kind of cut yourself off from that and just focus on getting into your role?
Yeah. It goes together. You do it together, it goes together. And a script, anybody who makes movies, realize it's just a blueprint. It's going to change no matter what. And I think if you leave it that way, let it be organic, I think you come off a lot better in the end.
And how much did change, especially once you hit set too?
Quite a bit, and since we had a split in the shooting, we shot for like 3 weeks in summer, and then we waited almost 3 months and come back and shot in the winter. So in those 3 months, we really had a chance to look at what we had done and then go back in. We actually made some big changes for the second half, so it was beneficial at that time for us.
What was that split like for you guys? Were you like fully immersed in it and then you had to pull yourselves out and then get back in again?
It was a little strange in one way. It's like when a movie ends, I always want to commit suicide. It's just, I ran away with the Carnival and I want to stay there. But so this was kind of strange because it ended, but it wasn't over. So it was kind of like getting to do 2 movies in a row almost. So in a way, it was really good. But the downtime is downtime. You just, once you're working, you just want to keep working.
Speaking of running away with a Carnival, is it hard to be fully immersed in such a stylistic world like this and then pull yourself out and go back to everyday life?
It's an adjustment. I think most actors I know, at least, tend to get a little depressed when something ends. And it's just natural. I mean, part of the reason I like movies, above stage. I mean, I love to like stage too, but when you do a movie, it really is running away with the Carnival. I mean, you get a new family. You just, it's almost like an army. You eat together, you sleep together, and you bivouac, and then you go out, you conquer your territory, you shoot it out, and then you move on, you march on. So it's always kind of weird when that's over. You're like, oh boy, I'm back to normalcy.
And that analogy is so appropriate in this case too. You guys really are like a little army.
It was an army movie, definitely. We were
so
marching.
How was it assembling your army? I mean, being a writer and an actor, I'm sure you had a hand in the casting too.
Not really. I mean, I worked with a lot of New York actors. The movie footage, Mulberry Street, I brought a lot of actors to it. It's much lower budget. But this one, I really, I mean, Jim keeps me inclusive all the time. He always asks my advice and stuff. But, I was kind of like, get who you need and let's look at them. And we did really well. I mean, I think, Connor came along and I met him once. Jim said, well, I want to meet you, put you on tape, see if you have chemistry. And afterwards, he just looked at me and said, what do you think? I said, he's the kid, hire him. There's no way around it, do it. And Michael Cervez, same thing. It was just one time, meet the guy, and it was just like, yeah.
And then how do you handle it from there? Did you guys have much rehearsal time?
Not particularly, not really on this one. I mean, it wasn't dialogue laden, and everything was pretty cut and dry, as far as what was going on in the scenes. I don't think of it as a dramatic script in that sense, you know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of underplaying. Everything was pretty obvious, so sometimes that's easier for the actors just to show up and get it out of their system once rather than lose it when they're doing rehearsal and then have to recreate it and go, well, I did it already.
Is it more like choreography then at that point? Because so much of it is action too, and having
a lot of this
remarks.
there was a lot of action here, so there was a lot of choreography. Plus, we were dealing with a big cast, so a lot of scenes, a lot of people involved in. So you really have to kind of know your marks and move around. Especially, we did one shot in a town that gets attacked by vampires from the sky, and that was all shot in one take, and that was a pretty ambitious, crazy thing to do. So that was really choreographed. Like Ryan Samuel, the camera guy, was just I don't know how he got it all done, because he was just going from one actor to the next without stopping and moving behind us. So everything you see, he's in the middle of shooting, which is hard to imagine with his guys. You know, I was like, wow.
Was one take always the plan, or is this kind of the result of being a short shoot?
We planned 2 days for that, and towards the end, Larry Fesden informed us that due to budget and timing and everything, you know, we really had to cut something, had to cut a day out. And Jim's answer was, "That's all right, we'll just do that whole town in one day," which meant we had to shoot that scene in one take. So it was kind of like challenging ourselves to do something a little above and beyond.
I can imagine. So what is it like shooting some of the other scenes where maybe you had a little more liberty to do multiple takes? Because even if you do have more than one shot to do something, you know, you got a character, they get all bloody, and you got to do it again and redress them, redo all the hair and makeup.
A lot of that. Connor had it worse than me. We had one point where we literally, because of scheduling, Michael Cerveris had to leave at a certain point, so we really had to get him shot out. So we had to shoot the end of the scene where Connor gets his head dunked in a thing of blood, and he just dunks his head in a thing of blood. It's like, God, it's covered in blood. And then literally clean him up, then go back and shoot the early stuff, and then later that night take his head and dunk it back in the blood and do it again. It was just like, oh, poor guy.
Is that how you guys had to manage how you were going to shoot this? Did you have to do like all the Brotherhood scenes when he was available?
Yeah, Michael probably had the toughest schedule to work around because he's a very busy actor, he's a very good actor, and he's in demand. So, that kind of stuff, we basically tried to shoot those people out as much as when we had them. So, me, I didn't care. I was there for the long haul. Connor was amazing. I mean, he came off Gossip Girls and basically said, "I'm doing this movie. I don't want anyone else to do it." So he was completely accessible and just wanted to do it.
It is a pretty incredible shift in environment, going from, the nice life in New York City to, where were you guys in Pennsylvania, in the middle of nowhere?
Douglasville, Pennsylvania.
And how was it being secluded like that for so long?
I love it. I'm a city kid, but man, I love the country. I camped out the first 3 weeks. I brought a tent with me and set up a camp, and I just stayed in my camp all the time. That was my dressing room, was my camp. I just went, boom.
They didn't offer you a hotel?
They did, but I didn't want it. Set in my camp. What's up there, buddy?
Can I ruin the shot?
What's up?
Go for it.
Getting old, man. Look at you. You're growing up. What's up, boy?
The poster's sick.
It's cool, man.
It looks so epic.
It's cool.
So epic. That better be over your bed at some point.
On my ceiling.
Yeah, dude.
So based on that, it seems like you guys really did, become a family after all this.
Yeah. I think, I've worked on some bigger budget stuff, and it's just different. It's more corporate. Everybody's very nice. I've been very lucky that way. But when you work on something like this, it is a labor of love, and after a while you realize the people that are there because they love what they're doing, and that's, you have something in common in that sense, and you generally do make some good friends. So, and hopefully you work together again someday. We'll see.
Speaking of it being a labor of love, that comes in handy in terms of production value too. Was that ever a concern for you guys? I mean, you have a vampire movie here where you're going to need a lot of, makeup and effects and a lot of elements.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way, nobody in this movie was overpaid. And, it's just what you got to do to get the movie done. So hopefully, you try and put as much as you can on screen, money-wise. You really don't want to waste your money. You want to put it on screen. So, and it's little things, like you say. It's just me camping out instead of asking for a room, or demanding this, demanding that, which is you don't need. I mean, I've got trailers on movies. I don't use them. I go outside and talk to the crew. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm sitting in the trailer here by myself. I hate it.
That was a craft service table. I'm picturing now you sitting outside your tent cooking your own food.
Oh yeah, we had some good meals at my campsite.
And what was the top priority in terms of your budget? Like, was there any element that was key to making this believable, especially in terms of set design? Was there anything that was like a must that you couldn't let go?
The biggest mistake, and yet one of the greatest boons we had, was probably the car. It was the first thing they gave us money to buy, like way before we even shot them, like almost a year before we shot the movie, because we were going to do like a teaser thing, which has been up on the web forever. Now we have a real trailer coming out. But we went out, me, Jim, and Adam Folk, one of the producers, and we're all buddies, So we went out one day, and Jim had seen this car on the internet, and we went, and it's a GTO convert. It's like, oh man, we're getting this car. That's it. And we spent a lot of money on the car from what they gave us, and it was just like, man, That car broke down every day we needed it. It wouldn't start. It was insane. And it got us through the movie, though. But we learned our lesson there, saying, all right, next time, we bring a mechanic with us before we buy the car we love.
Did you get to keep the car?
I think it's actually MPI owns it, I think. But I think it's still in Jim's. Jim has a cabin upstate. I think it's in his little garage thing. Yeah, still. Last time I was there, it was anyway.
And how about your wardrobe? Did you get
That
to
is
keep
in
any
my
of
house.
that?
I made it, and I kept it all. I kept all my weapons. I kept everything. I made all that stuff. So
You made it yourself?
yeah,
How'd you do that?
just carved it, doctored it up.
Really
Crafted it.
authentic then.
Yeah, I made the bow and arrow. All of it. Never made a bow and arrow before. It actually worked too. I was surprised.
So now ultimately we have a vampire movie here and we have an industry saturated with them. So what is it about this that you want people to know that separates it from everything else we've seen?
It's not slick. It's not overproduced. It's certainly not pretty sympathetic vampires. We're not humanizing the vampires at all. And me and Jim kind of work in a sense of very Romero-esque. Not to compare ourselves with Romero, but people always do. In the sense that we like to use the genre as a metaphor for society. And I hope, at least, that we manage to do that again with this one, and open some people's eyes to what's going on in the world, and entertain them at the same time, without beating them on the head. Maybe staking them in the heart, but not beating them on the head.
And that also was a major thing when it came to designing the vampires, because you know they're not the Twilight vampires. They're not even like 30 Days of Night vampires. It's almost like I got a sense it was like a vampire zombie hybrid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get the comparison a lot. It was an early choice for us to make the vampires feral, in the sense of just what would happen if somebody got this disease and turned into this creature that buried itself in the ground at night and came out in the day and came out at night, and after 3 months, they wouldn't look too good. You know, a couple of weeks of that, you wouldn't look too good. And then Brian Spears, the makeup guy, came on, and he's just so terrific and works within the confines of an impossible budget for what he pulled off. He also plays Sister Agatha, the vampire, in this, and he plays the Santa Claus vampire in it. That's him. And you know, he made it work, and they look believable and scary. And I was in shock.
They're not easy kills either. I mean, in things like Buffy, they, you know, take a stake, drive in the heart, that's the end. These are tough to kill.
Yeah, well, we knew we weren't going to have the budget to do, you know, flying, acrobatic, crazy stuff, you know, and it's been done anyway, you know what I mean? Not our type of movie. And in reality, if you've ever seen a fight, it's not clean. You know what I mean? It's not clean. It's an ugly thing, and we tried to stick to that and keep it rough and tumble and ugly, rather than really choreographed and sophisticated.
So now you want to enjoy this coming out, but I'm sure you've got some plans for what's to come next.
Oh yeah, we're
Working on anything?
A lot of different stuff. Jim and I adapted a while back a Joe Lansdale book called Cold in July that Jim brought to me. He's very interested in doing, so we optioned the book. And we basically adapted it already, and now we're trying to cast, and we have companies interested. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully it'll come along pretty soon. And I've written 2 other scripts in the downtime, so we're looking at those and seeing possibilities.